Feeling stuck? Yearning for more? You're in the right place. This is Midlife Moxie with Nicole, where you're going to get a weekly dose of courage, clarity, and maybe a little bit of chaos as we navigate our best chapter yet, midlife.
Welcome back to Midlife Moxie with Nicole. I am your host, Nicole, and this is the final episode of season 1. And I have a confession to make. I'm breaking my own plan right now. I was supposed to end this season with an episode about ongoing growth and Moxie, but something happened. I felt pulled to do something that good girls aren't taught to do. Pause, reflect, and take stock. Spending time to actually witness my own transformation instead of rushing past towards it to hit the next goal. What nobody is speaking about when it comes to recovery from good girl conditioning that I want to share with you is reflection isn't indulgent. It's revolutionary. It's sacred. You see, good girls are taught to keep going, keep producing, keep moving forward without ever acknowledging just how far that we've come or what we've survived. To pause and witness your own year is to refuse that conditioning. So today I'm going to do something dangerous. I'm going to honor the year in 2025 that I chose myself. And I am inviting you to do the same. So we're first going to talk about the exits, the things that you burn down, because they are necessary for soul survival. It's a core teaching that I have. And in reflecting back on my year, I lived it in ways that terrified and liberated me. So in my work, phase 1 is rage. And in this, it's recognizing the cage. You can't exit what you can't see. So let me show you what I saw this year and what I chose to burn down. This year started in oddly familiar territory, a personal challenge in my in-laws' failing health. I have medical experience. Remember, I've got a nursing background. I've worked in elder care, and I also worked in the system when my own dad started to have his own health decline. So I knew how to handle this. But what was so very different is these were not my blood relatives. My husband is an only child, and we live across state from my in-laws. So a 5-minute drive to handle matters wasn't really our reality. I also need to add here that for years, my husband and I had been talking with our in-laws about aging, failing health, and they never wanted to discuss it. But this was the year that they were forced to face it. The good girl in me showed up with bells on. I dropped everything, canceled self-care massage appointments, pedicures, time that I had on my schedule to do nothing, read, watch movies. Yeah, I did all of that. I even put the time that I was going to devote to what I wanted to work on in 2025 and any business plans, put them all on hold. I canceled client calls and meetings that I had on my calendar. I postponed trainings that I had invested in because I told myself this is what you do for family. I spent weeks going through phone calls, on the road travel trips, going on little sleep, with a lot of crushing stress and worry. All of this while supporting my husband and handling the business that his parents should have, but didn't. And through it all, I discovered some harsh realities about what being an in law meant in their eyes. The bond that I thought we had wasn't what I believed. And I was angry. No, actually furious that I poured so much of my heart and soul into taking care of business that they should have handled. And then my body sent me the bill that I couldn't ignore. I got sick, really sick. I had run myself into the ground, overextended beyond what was sustainable. And I was paying the price in ways that my nervous system just would not let me ignore. That illness, combined with some tense and difficult conversations with my in-laws, led to my own exit. I stepped back. My husband and I decided that I could support him from behind the scenes, but the in-laws needed to know that he would be the one having conversations with doctors, making important medical decisions, and handling the emotional labor, not me. So the cost that I paid was physical illness. It was also burnout and a reminder that my body keeps the score and will make me pay the price when I abandon myself. But the gift in all of this is that I remembered that choosing myself isn't selfish when the alternative is a self-destruction. I remembered that family doesn't mean I owe anyone to my health, my soul, or abandoning myself. And professionally, I also made some expensive exits. I chose this year going into new containers with coaches. I took chances on programs and memberships. Yes, I was drawn in by social media presence, follower numbers, promises made in polished posts and videos. And I want to be clear that there is nothing inherently wrong with any of those things. It's business. People build their businesses in ways that work for them. But what I noticed is that following the roles of other people, I started to sacrifice big parts of myself for roles that someone else made that worked for them and that weren't working for me. I was following external authority instead of trusting my own internal wisdom. I was chasing shiny object syndrome and falling for maybe some false promises that social media tends to flaunt, either in flashy copywriting or carefully curated captions. My body knew, I ignored it. My intuition knew, and I abandoned it. But that good girl that is deeply within me just kept trying to make it work, kept thinking that maybe I just wasn't doing it right, and kept investing more money to prove that I could succeed in their systems. But I had to choose the exit. Some programs just ended naturally. Others I left early. I canceled memberships, or I stopped participating even though I'd paid. And the cost was just a lot of money down the drain. My wallet paid the price. But the gift was a deeper, bone deep trust in myself. It was an inner wisdom to recognize when something doesn't align, even if it looks successful for others. There was permission to stop following someone else's blueprint and trust my own body's knowing. So yes, I was angry, but I used this as information. It was information that previously taught me that caretaking at the cost of my health wasn't love. It was self-abandonment. and that following someone else's business blueprint at the cost of my integrity wasn't growth. It was conditioning. So, what maybe is your rage or anger trying to tell you about exits that you need to make in life? Let me pause here and ask you to give some deep thought, because maybe you're waiting for the right time or the perfect plan. But the real truth is, the right time is truly when staying becomes more painful than leaving. The right time is when the body sends you the signs that you can no longer ignore. The right time is when the cost of staying exceeds the fear of going. The perfect plan, that's honoring your soul and your body that are dying in systems that just require you to comply. Phase 2 of my work is reclaim. And this is a remembering of who you were before you learned to be good, before you buried your power to be loved, before compliance became your survival strategy. So this year, I didn't learn just new things. I remembered true things, and there is a difference. I gave away parts of myself to fit into boxes and containers that weren't mine to fill. I thought if I rubbed elbows with certain people, their magic would somehow transfer to me. My business would suddenly explode into the powerhouse that I knew it could be. My bank account would overflow. My client roster and schedule would be booked out for weeks. And none of that happened. And quite honestly, it's hard to talk about my own failures, especially here on this podcast, because I know you're listening. Because it makes me vulnerable. It opens me up to judgment. It reveals that business isn't always easy, and that most of what you're seeing on social media are just facades, highlight reels, revenue screenshots. The just signed another dream client posts are not always the full truth. But what I am reclaiming by being open and honest is stepping into my voice, the powerhouse that my voice is. It's not someone else's voice. And this isn't someone else's formula that I'm using. It is mine, all mine. I'm allowing you to know that I do not have my shit all figured out over here either. And maybe you thought I did, or maybe you thought I didn't. But if you ever questioned it, here is your answer. I am in this work just as deep as I am with others. And I remembered that this process is lifelong. It's not a 6-week sprint just to get a quick fix. It's a devotion to lifetime effort. It's choosing yourself again and again, even when it's messy, expensive, and vulnerable. I remember that my voice just doesn't need someone else's magic. It has its own fire. Which leads me to starting this podcast, because it was something that I had wanted to do for a long time, years, actually. But I told myself I didn't know what to talk about. I couldn't possibly create content weekly. I didn't understand seasons or podcast structures. And the biggest lie, I didn't have the right technical support to even create a podcast. But here's the truth that I was avoiding all along. I had a microphone, and I actually did purchase software 2 years ago. I just didn't know how to use it. And maybe more importantly is I didn't even try to learn. It was much easier to tell myself these stories about what I couldn't do to keep myself safe, to keep from putting the podcast out there, to avoid planning for it, to never set aside time to dream big about making it reality. Because if I never tried, I'd never fail, right? And then I looked at my calendar and it was open. And that was a lonely feeling. And I knew at that point I had to do something. And that's when I gave myself permission to dream. What did I want to chat about? What topics did I need to hear over 10 years ago when I was early on in my journey? What advice was I seeking then that never made its way to me? What would other women my age want to hear? All of these questions opened me up to curiosity, wonder, joy, and the unknown. And then I just started. And it wasn't as hard as I had made it up to be in my head. I mean, here I am. This is episode 32 that I am ending season 1 with. I reclaimed just not the ability to start a podcast, but a reclamation of my own creative power. The part of me that dreams and builds and put things into the world even when they are imperfect. The part of me that trusts my own wisdom enough to share it. The part that doesn't need permission from anyone else, and certainly not my own fear. So let this be a reminder to you that you're not born to be digestible. We're all born to be free. So what parts of you have you buried to fit into someone else's container? What creative power have you kept locked away with stories about not being ready, not being qualified, or not even having the right tools? What would happen if you stopped trying to borrow someone else's magic and just remembered your own? What would happen if you gave yourself permission to start, even when it's messy, even if you're scared, and even if you don't have all the answers? Your voice could be a powerhouse. Your creative power is already there. You don't need to earn it or learn it from someone else. You just need to remember it and use it. And phase 3 of my work is rise. This is where we create the exits, where recovery becomes revolution. Personal transformation becomes cultural disruption. Where you don't just heal yourself, you become dangerous to all the systems that need women compliant. So this year, I stopped asking for permission and started giving it. And it started with giving it to myself. So earlier, I touched on that in-law situation. The one where I kind of stepped back from that caretaker role. But what I didn't mention then is really how dangerous that choice would have looked from the outside. I said truths that were not harmonious, and I had conversations about their health and care that made my in-laws very uncomfortable. I named realities that they didn't want to face. But I had to stop protecting everyone from the hard truths. And then I had to choose myself and just step away. And the good girl in me, she would have stayed. She would have pushed through, sacrificed her health, her business, peace to keep everyone else comfortable. She would have swallowed her anger, managed everyone's emotions, and martyred herself on the altar of family duty. But I am a recovering good girl. And I said the hard truths, and I set the boundaries, and I stepped back when staying meant self-destruction. Did it look selfish? in the eyes of other people? Probably. Did it disrupt their expectations of who I was supposed to be? Absolutely. Did it make me the difficult one? Most likely. But choosing my own personal peace over comfort of others was the most dangerous and yet sacred thing that I could do. Let me remind you that every time a woman chooses herself over this system that needs her to be small, compliant, she is giving permission to the other women out there to do the same. So my story might ring true with you, and you might actually have a realization of your own. That's why I'm speaking on this. But here's another way that I became dangerous this year. I decided it was time to put my health as a non-negotiable priority. For years, and I mean years, I had been dismissed while going through perimenopause. And now I'm fully menopausal. I had doctors tell me that things that I was experiencing and symptoms were normal. I was told to deal with it or document it or come back and see me next year. I was told my symptoms weren't that bad. And yes, I had someone recommend yoga, meditation, or a few other things that avoided actually addressing my own hormonal health. So this year, I was done. I found a new doctor, and not just any doctor, one who was educated in menopause and perimenopause and women's health issues, one who listened, and one who treated my body like it mattered. I started HRT and progesterone. And the good girl in me probably would have just kept suffering in silence. She would have accepted the medical dismissal as truth. She would have believed that women's bodies aren't just supposed to decline, and there's nothing to be done about it. She would have made herself small in the doctor's office, not wanting to be demanding or even difficult. But these days, the recovering good girl in me, I fired doctors that didn't listen, advocated for my own body. I refused to accept suffering as my fate. I continued to exercise, eat healthy, work on weight loss, not because I was trying to fit into someone else's beauty standard, but because I wanted to feel good in my body, strong, alive, and present. And this is dangerous, especially for women who are at this age, midlife 40, 50s, 60s, because we're supposed to disappear. We're supposed to accept decline. We're supposed to be grateful for whatever healthcare offers us. We're supposed to suffer through hot flashes, brain fog, weight gain, and just deal with it. But I chose myself. I chose vitality. I chose to demand healthcare that actually serves women's bodies. And the choice will ripple. You're listening to this, and hopefully, if you were where I was, you'll take this as a cue, because I chose to refuse to disappear. I refuse to accept being dismissed. I refuse to suffer silently. And in all of this, it allows other women to question their own acceptance of systems that aren't serving them. You see, comfort zones are cages dressed up as safety, and mine was too. The cage of being the good daughter-in-law who was sacrificing herself. The cage of accepting medical dismissal because I didn't want to be seen as difficult. The cage of suffering silently because that's what women are supposed to do. What would happen if you stopped trying to make everyone comfortable and started choosing yourself instead? What if your selfish boundary with family is actually a sacred act of self-preservation that you and maybe other women you know are waiting for permission to make? What if demanding healthcare that listens is a pivotal revolutionary act that changes how doctors treat the next woman who walks through their door? What if choosing your vitality, strength, and presence in midlife is dangerous to a culture that just wants women to disappear? I don't see these as small choices. They are big acts of personal decisions. Every time you choose yourself, you're allowing another woman to do the same. You're lighting the path for them. That's the reason I'm also doing this podcast. I don't have it all figured out and I'm not perfect, but I hopefully can shed light on things that widely are just not talked about out there. So let's go into inner wisdom. And when you're reviewing your year, allowing yourself to be open to what you've been taught. Wisdom isn't something that you learn from a book or a course or a class. It's something that you earn through leaving, exits, choosing yourself, becoming dangerous enough to face the hard truths. So here's what the year has taught me. Not just information, but wisdom that is now carved deeply into my bones. Family won't always love you when it's hard. The story that I told you earlier about the in-laws taught me this in ways that I cannot deny or ignore. It challenged the entire notion of what I should do versus what I needed to do. Good girl conditioning teaches us that family is everything. That blood or marriage creates an unbreakable obligation. That if you're not willing to sacrifice yourself for family, you're selfish, cold, or even ungrateful. But the truth that I earned through all of this is that most people will guilt trip you into being that perfect family member, the one who's always available, always ready to help, completely negating your worth in the process. They'll use love as leverage to keep you compliant. My story may be your story one day, or it may be something that you're going through right now. But what I want you to know is the choices are always yours to make, not theirs, yours. And I think this matters because women have been controlled through family obligation for centuries. We've been taught that choosing ourselves over family duty makes us bad women, bad daughters, bad wives, or bad daughter-in-laws. But what if choosing yourself in the face of family pressure is actually the most honest form of love? What if it's more sacred to honor your truth than perform devotion that is destroying you? I also learned that social media metrics mean absolutely nothing when it comes to real wisdom, real depth, or real transformation. Being the most educated, having the most likes or the most comments, the most followers really means nothing. To be honest with you, some of the individuals that have massive platforms are the most vapid, hollow money shillers on the face of the earth. Comparing myself, my journey, my business, my impact to theirs feels like an endless uphill battle with no real end game. Because the truth is, no one ever wins in the comparison game, ever. And yet, as a Gen X woman who grew up watching Brooke Shields in those Calvin Klein jeans commercials, do you remember those? Comparing myself to the popular girls in middle and high school, having MTV VJs and music videos as the measure of how girls should look or be the measure of success. Yes, I was trained in this trap from the very beginning at an early age. Good girl conditioning teaches us that our worth comes from external validation, from being chosen. Remember the days of gym class when you got picked to be on teams? Yeah, remember that. From being seen as successful by standards that other people measure, from hitting metrics that somehow prove we're valuable, but to who? What I've learned through painful, expensive lessons this year is my worth isn't in the follower count, and my impact isn't measured in likes, and my business isn't validated by someone else's blueprint. This matters because women are being sold lies on the daily, multiple times a day. If we follow the right strategy, if we learn from the right guru, if we get a certain number of followers, then we'll finally be enough. We'll finally be successful and finally matter. But it's a trap. It's just good girl conditioning in a different package. Instead of comparing ourselves to the popular girls when we were back in school, we're now comparing ourselves to successful individuals on Instagram. These could be influencers or these could be celebrities. It's the same cage, just different wallpaper. And these lessons cost me, and I'm sure they've cost you. They've cost me my health and my money, my comfort, and some people-pleasing patterns. But they also gave me something more valuable: truth, wisdom, the kind of knowing that comes from living through the fire and choosing yourself anyways. So now I want to give you space to discover your own wisdom from this year. So my invitation to you is to do a sacred inventory. Before I close out season 1 and this episode, I want you to give yourself permission to take your own sacred inventory, not as performance, not to post on your Instagram story, and not to prove to anyone, but for you and your soul. I'm launching this episode weeks before the New Year's even begins to give you time to sit with the questions I'm about to ask, time to let the answers emerge without pressure. And if you finish this over the holidays, beautiful. But if it doesn't happen till January or February, that is also okay. I don't see this as another year-end reflection exercise that you have to force yourself through. This is a devotion to your ongoing evolution. This is about keeping this work alive in your world, not just another podcast that you listen to, but your own personal revolution that you're actively living. So I'm going to give you some questions to sit with. You can journal with them if that's a practice you like to do. I'm a journaler, so that's my way. But do it how it works for you. You can think through these questions on a walk. You can talk to them. You can talk with them, with a friend, or even a licensed professional or therapist. You can voice memo yourself in the car. Whatever way works for you is the right way. So we're going to go through the 3 phases that we've been exploring: rage, reclaim, and rise. So phase 1 is rage. What did you exit? Let's honor what you left behind this year. So what did you exit? And this isn't just maybe jobs or relationships, but it also could be roles that you've played or beliefs that you've held, conditioning patterns that have taken over your life, or by systems that required you to be compliant. What good girl conditioning has finally loosened its grip of you? Where did you stop performing? Where did you stop sacrificing yourself? Where did you stop being digestible? What exits are you still afraid to make? And be honest here. What's keeping you in a cage? What are you telling yourself that you should do even though it's killing your soul? Sit with these. Don't rush past them, because exits do matter and sacred no's matter. Phase 2 is reclaim. What did you remember? So second, we're going to celebrate what you reclaimed. What did you unearth this year? The parts that you previously buried to be loved, or the parts that you suppressed to be safe, the parts you downplayed to be accepted. What truths did you start speaking? Even if your voice shook, even if people didn't like it, even if it disrupted harmony. What power did you stop downplaying? Your voice, your intuition, your creative fire, your rage, your wisdom? What did you finally allow yourself to own? And allow yourself to feel proud here. Reclaiming these are strength and power. And yes, a little touch of your own personal revolution. Phase 3 is rise. Asking yourself, how did you become dangerous? Let's witness how you became a threat to systems that need you compliant. What boundaries have you disrupted for other people's comfort? Where did you say no? Where did you step back? Where did you choose yourself over the expectation of others? What choices look selfish, but were sacred? You know, the ones that probably made you feel a little guilty, or the ones that people questioned, the ones that prioritized your peace over the comfort of someone else. What examples are you setting for other women? Choosing yourself this year, someone saw that, and it was a woman, and that gave someone else permission to do the same. So I want you to own that you became dangerous. And finally, the deep wisdom question of, what do you know now that you did not know a year ago? Not data, but wisdom. The kind that is deeply ingrained in your body and your soul through experience. And what will you carry forward into next year? And just as important, what are you leaving behind? Take your time with these questions. There's no deadline. There's no right answer. There's just your truth and the sacred inventory that you're taking. And I want you to know that this does not have to be a solo journey where you feel like you have to go it alone. Yes, I'm on social media. I'm on Threads, YouTube, Facebook, and sometimes Instagram. Find me if you haven't done so already. I do have an invitation at the end of the podcast, but if you don't want to listen, just find me at I am Nicole Haight. Share with me on the socials what came up for you. Tell me about your dangerous exits. Let's celebrate the dangerous choices that you've made. Let me witness your reclamation. And if you want to go deeper, get on my email list. The link is in my bio and all the socials. You can connect with me weekly in that email. I teach, I share, or I just provide other nuggets of wisdom that I am compelled to write. You can visit my website at www.nicolehaight.com. Find out how to work with me. It's okay if you listen to this podcast and you do the work on your own, but if you want to go deeper, that's how to do it. Consider it devotion to the ongoing evolution that you're going through. I want you to stay connected. I want you to stay dangerous and keep choosing yourself. And this work does not end with this episode and the end of season 1. It continues with the choices that you make each and every day, the boundaries you choose to set, and every time that you honor your truth over someone else's comfort. I'll be here, and there's a community that is also here. And your recovering good girl is just getting started. So this has been season 1 with Midlife Moxie with Nicole Haight. 32 episodes of permission giving, system disrupting, rage honoring, exit supporting content. 32 weeks of me showing up to say the things that other people won't say, to give you permission to be dangerous and make dangerous choices that maybe you've been afraid to make, to honor your rage and anger as sacred information instead of spiritually just bypassing it away. I want you to know that this isn't just for my revolution. It is ours. It is the women in the world today at this age who have just had enough and are ready to burn it down. Every time you have chosen yourself this year, whether or not I knew about it, you're making it easier for other women to do the same. The leaving and the exits make cracks in the foundation of good girl conditioning. Others see what you're doing, and sometimes you don't even know it. So this isn't healing, it's a revolt. And the world needs you to revolt and have your own revolution. Season 2 will be coming, but right now I am in a sacred pause between what was and what's next. And I'm giving you and myself permission to just be here now, to witness what we've become, and to honor the women that we're striving to be. So the journey will absolutely continue and the revolution will not stop. But right now, it's about taking stock. And there is a sacred quality to that too. Because let me remind you that good girls are always taught to keep moving, keep producing, and somehow keep proving. And I feel that recovering good girls know that reflection has its own metrics and can be a revolutionary act. Witnessing your own transformation matters because that honors how far you've come, but it's just as important as planning where you're going. So your final permission slip for season 1, all you recovering good girls, you don't have to keep moving forward without honoring just how far you've come. You don't have to rush past your own transformation to prove you're productive. You don't have to perform growth. You get to witness it. You get to take the inventory. You get to honor the exits and celebrate your own reclamations. Own the dangerous choices that you've made. I hope you chose yourself this year because it matters. It changes things and it makes you part of something bigger. So let's remind you that the good girl is dead. And there is a woman rising from the ashes who is magnificent, dangerous, and exactly who the world needs. I will see you in season 2. But until then, stay dangerous, sacred, and keep choosing yourself. Before you go, I want to make sure that you know how to stay connected to this work. Because what we have talked about today, this is just the beginning. If you're sitting there thinking, holy shit, she just described my entire life, and you want to know exactly what patterns are running the show in your life, I've created something specifically for you. You can head on over to my website, www.nicolehaight.com, and take the assessment, which sacred pattern is running your midlife. It's a free diagnostic tool that will tell you exactly where you are in your own conditioning and what your next steps should be. There's no fluff, no generic advice, just precise information about your specific patterns. Because here's the thing, you can't interrupt what you can't see. And most women are trying to change their lives without understanding the deeper nervous system conditioning that is actually driving their choices. If you want to dive deeper into these conversations and connect with other women who are also done performing their way through life, you can join my private Facebook group. Link will be in the show notes. And it's where we have conversations, real, raw, unfiltered truth about women in midlife. And if you want to be on my VIP list for weekly doses of truth that maybe help keep you accountable to your own transformation, there is a link in the show notes, but there's also a link at my website, www.nicolehaight.com, where you can sign up to be on my email list. This isn't a typical newsletter filled with tips and inspiration, though I do include that from time to time. This is a newsletter where I share hard truths, insights, raw, unfiltered things that are just not socially acceptable on social media. And these awarenesses that you can take away from what I share can be a catalyst for change. So I invite you to sign up. And if you're ready to go even deeper, because you might be tired of all of this surface level work and you really want a whole system level transformation, everything you need to know about working with me is on my website, www.nicolehaight.com. I'm not a coach, and this isn't coaching, and it's not therapy, and it's sure as hell not spiritual bypassing. This is a resurrection of the nervous system. And this is for the woman who is ready to stop performing and start living. You can also follow me on Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at I am Nicole Haight, where I share reminders about conditioning and women and midlife, confronting truths and desires that are just frankly not up for negotiation. So next week we will continue to have discussions that likely will make some of you squirm. It is what I'm best at. But if this episode shifted something for you, do me a favor and leave a review. Not because I need an ego boost, but because there are women out there who are Googling why do I feel invisible in my own life at 2 a.m.? And your review might be what helps them find this podcast. Your review could also be the breadcrumb that leads another woman out of performance prison and into her own resurrection. So until next week, remember, you don't need permission to want what you want. You never did. That was just conditioning dressed up as consideration. You're a woman in midlife. You don't need permission. You just need to have desires and wants and the ability to be able to go after all of them. So stop asking and start claiming.